they say that they're doing the business to serve the family, yet the business is taking them away from the family
Right.
that they're trying to serve. Right. And so I think the balance is, a lot of times, you know, we speak about high performers. Oh, what do they have in common? One other thing is, like, I have to often put the reins on them because I have to say, look, like, this is a very powerful question. Is this a trade-off you're willing to make? Right. So if you want to make the next million,
Yeah.
is that going to mean you might lose your family?
Gavin, how you doing, my friend? Thank you so much for being here with me. I'm appreciative of it and of your time.
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm super excited to be here. I love making these new connections like this and speaking to other people who, like, I don't know why I'm surprised, but I'm always surprised and excited when I meet like new people who think like me and who, we can have a conversation about this stuff.
That's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to this conversation. And I got introduced to you by a good friend of mine, Corey McKinnon. I know
Yep.
he's part of the coaching group and program that you're with. You're with Craig Ballantyne, so you are a personal development coach. And so that's why I wanted to have you on today, because we were briefly talking before we got on here, and with everything that's happening right now, you got to be able to protect your mind. I think that's such a large asset that I don't think enough people do. And the information that we're being bombarded with, especially when you can pick up your phone and see the things that you see on there today. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here to kind of talk through that. So maybe before we do, why don't we maybe give a little bit of background story on who you are and
Sure.
what kind of led you to where you are today? Because I don't think you started off in high school saying I'm going to be a personal development coach, did you? Maybe you did. I don't know.
In high school and even in college and even up until probably 6 or 7 years ago, I would have laughed at who I am now because I just didn't understand it. I would have been like, you are a woo-woo weirdo hippie and I have no time for you. Like, I would have made fun of the me that I am now. So yeah, let me take
too.
you back on a journey into Winnipeg, Canada.
Yeah, when I said me too, not me, I would have laughed at you, but I would have laughed at me. Just to
Yeah.
make sure we're clear on that.
Yeah, like our former selves just like couldn't comprehend or understand this, right? And I think a lot of us, to that end, we're afraid of change because we're afraid of what other people will think. But like, I'm really, really proud of myself for these changes that I've made, and the friends or the people that have kind of like fallen off. That's okay. That's totally fine. And it's not who I am. I'm not in alignment with them. They're not in alignment with me anymore. And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, going back to, I won't take too much time here, but, I grew up in a middle-class household. My parents were a cop and a teacher, and really did their best to provide me the best life that they could. I was an only child, so that helped. Right. There was a little more money to go around because there wasn't other kids to pay for. And that allowed me to be able to play hockey. Of course, Canadian kid, I played hockey. I was a goalie, and turns out I was really good at it. And so I worked my way up pretty quickly in the hockey ranks and found myself at 17 years old living in Seattle, Washington, thousands of miles away from home, and playing junior hockey, which essentially is like semi-professional hockey.
Right.
Right. And I had no tools or any idea how to deal with failure. I had always just been the best. I had just been really good. And I had been the best in school. I had been the best in hockey, and I had never really experienced any hardships or failures. And so as soon as I started failing, I did not handle it well. Started pointing the finger, started blaming, started, quitting on myself, quitting on my teammates. And essentially, I like to say it this way: I orchestrated a complete meltdown of my hockey career over the course of one season, which was my NHL draft year. And you can start to get the picture that it was my mindset that held me back. You know, if you ask anyone, I had the skill set to probably play pro. I don't know if I was good enough to really, you know, play in the NHL, but I had the skill set. But what held me back was between the ears. And then I went to college, got a degree in kinesiology, became a personal trainer, and I started to see the same pattern happen when I was trying to build like an online business or trying to grow my personal training business. Was it wasn't working out. I started blaming my business coach. I started blaming bad leads. I started blaming this, blaming that. And I had this like recognition or this moment where I realized this isn't serving me. And this is the same thing that I did before. And that kind of started me on the path of making these changes. And then I just kind of kept going, you know, essentially kept putting one foot in front of the other to get to this point where I realized like I have this story, just like the personal trainer who used to be overweight, right? I have this story where I was client zero for myself.
Right.
So I can really relate to a lot of the people that I'm working with, no matter what their concerns are, because I've been there. I've felt what they're feeling.
Yeah. You know, what's incredible about that as well, too, is like, you know, I remember, you know, when I was younger, I watched hockey quite a bit, and you always wonder, why is it that one team beats another when you know that some of them, the skill sets are kind of the same? And then you look at like, is it just the mindset? Is it like, you know, one team could be winning the whole entire year and then all of a sudden they get into playoffs and the underdog wins, you know? And is that just that mindset shift where sometimes they feel overconfident and then sometimes that underdog says we have nothing to lose? Is that part of it?
I think it is. And I think what I've realized, and sports is such a good analogy for it, is when everyone's at such a high level that like the difference is like minuscule, right? Like the difference between the team that wins the championship and the second place team is like almost nothing.
Right.
Like it could be a bounce that goes one way, right?
Yeah.
But I think when that happens, and then we see that in like, you see that in the real estate space, we see that in the high performance, like in the business space, right? It's not necessarily like the business owner who makes $1 million a year is better than the business owner that makes 500K or that makes 900K necessarily. It could just be a belief. And this is what I have really like pulled the thread on. And it, you know, like I said, great example with sports, because I believe, you know, you look at these underdog stories, it happens every year. Someone upsets someone else in the playoffs. And I truly believe, like you said, when you come in as the team, the better team, there's expectations. And if you can't manage those expectations, you will not perform at your best. And the only reason you're the better team is because you've been performing at your best all year.
Right.
If you're the team that's the underdog, right? And this is where these coaches do such a great job. They go, you got nothing to lose. Just go literally play your best. If you lose every game, it doesn't matter, because you were supposed to lose every game. And then they just play free and they let their skills shine. Right. And so that's one of the big things that I do with a lot of my clients is like, how can we let your skill set shine, right? You've got this skill set. You got all the strategies and tactics. This is what I found when I was in the business coaching or when I was trying to grow my personal training business and with hockey, right? I had all the strategies and tactics. Like I could have written a book on it. I knew what I needed to do, but I couldn't do it. Right. And so many people who come to me, they have the strategy and the tactics, like they know what they need to do, but like for some reason, it's just not landing the way that that it really should be landing. So how do we pull that out of them? That's the big question that I'm trying to answer all the time.
Yeah. You know, you said something I think that was really important there, which was the freedom to be you. And I think that's what holds a lot of people back is you look at it, even say on social media or, you know, like for real estate agents or real estate investors, they're scared to post their 1-minute video because, oh, well, I need to get it right, or it needs to be perfect, or what if somebody says some negative comment on me, and it's that freedom of the lack of freedom holds them back of judgment of it's usually against themselves. It's like it's their own mind is their worst enemy.
Yeah, because like, you know, I'll tell a brief story about this. There's a guy in my hometown. They've started a brokerage now, and he's crushing it. And he's been crushing it for a long time. I knew him through the hockey world. He was like a hockey coach and scout, but he's a very like outgoing guy, and he's like really in your face and really loud. And he took that and he ran with it. And he was doing video content on social media years ago. And now he's like teaching people about video content on social media.
Yeah.
And I was at this event where there were like 3 realtors there, and it was just like a social event, and they're chatting and they're like, how about that so-and-so? And they were kind of like poking fun, not knowing that I knew him well.
Right.
And it was like, I know that he's doing remarkably better than them, and he's teaching people about it, and he's being himself. Now, he is being judged by these other people, but at the end of the day, and this is the point I'm, making here, is you're going to be judged either way. So why not be judged for doing the thing that you want to do and for being you, rather than, being judged for maybe staying in the background or whatever, because they're going to judge you. If you're successful and if you think different than them, like, you're always going to be judged. Yep. So we get, what if they say something about me or they make a comment? Yeah. What if? Like, are you going to die? No.
Exactly.
Right?
I heard this great quote the other day, and I don't remember who said this, but it said, all criticism is a result of unmet needs. And so you're seeing who you want to be on stage or on social. And then maybe sometimes in the beginning, you do like them and you like the post, and all of a sudden you see it all the time. And then you're like, that's who I want to be, or that's where I'm trying to get to. And then all of a sudden you start to hate on them.
Start to resent them.
Yeah. And listen, and I'm guilty of it as well too. And that quote kind of helped me, like, oh, that is because I love what they're doing.
Bingo. Yeah. And like, I think a lot of times judgment, I actually was just working with a client who, she's afraid. So she's doing very well financially, and she's afraid of people judging her for the amount of money she's making. And, it's like, so they're going to judge you. Like, judgment says so much more about the judger than the judgee.
Yes.
Right. And I learned from a great coach and friend of mine, if you point one finger out as judgment, you better expect there's 3 pointing back at you, because generally your judgment is some mirror, some reflection of where you feel like you're not doing what you need to do. Right. So you see this person crushing it on social media and you start to judge them. It's like, that's because you know that you could be doing that too, but you haven't had the balls to do it, or you haven't, really put yourself out there and taken responsibility to do it. They just weren't afraid to do it. And now you're hating on them because they've got what you feel like you should have. Hey, go do the work, right? Go do what they're doing. And then let's see. Right. Yeah. Because I think that's the key, right? This unmet needs, or even just like this judgment conversation, like, be careful, because, there's always a mirror looking back at you.
100%. I agree with that. That's why that one resonated with me so much. I'm like, that's exactly what it is. It really is.
It nails it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what got you into the coaching there with Craig? And I mean, you're coaching some high level, high net worth individuals, right? And so let's maybe touch a little bit on that and why that particular path.
Yeah. So I right before COVID, I was doing the personal training thing, and I had a bit of an online business and in person. And I needed something. I felt like I needed to go deeper with my clients, right? Like, I loved helping people move better, but I was like, there's something more here that I feel like I could pull out of. And, I had people coming in, they'd do their one workout a week and they'd go back and not change anything else. And then they'd complain. And it's like, I wish that I could help them more, but the container wasn't set up properly. And it was time to move on. So I moved, perfect timing, right before COVID, into business coaching, where I was helping fitness business owners move online, which they needed to learn in COVID.
Yep.
And that's where I really started to bring in a lot of this mindset stuff, because I had good mentors, and I had realized, like, yeah, we'll give you the tactics, but like, if you don't have your mindset figured out, it doesn't matter. And so I was doing a lot of this work. I was working with clients and things were going really well. I had best months ever in my business. I was doing well, but I realized that I didn't really know how to manage money, which I've learned since then. And I wasn't very good at and didn't really enjoy managing like a team, like being like kind of like the CEO.
Right.
Right around that time, this opportunity with Craig came up to just be a coach. All I had to do was, show up and coach. And I really liked that idea. And so what I found was when I dove in, I was like, oh, I'll just do this, part time and I'll keep building my thing. It's kind of a stopgap. I fell in love because all I had to do was show up and coach people. And it gave me a lot of time and space and energy to start to think about how else I wanted to positively affect the world. And I got much better at coaching because I was only focused on that. My wife said to me, after the first summer working with Craig, I was like, man, I feel like I'm such a better coach than I was when I first started. She's like, that's because you're getting tons and tons of reps, right? I didn't have to worry about generating leads. I didn't have to worry about making sales. I just coached.
Right.
And so I got all these reps and I got actively better. And then that's what leads, one thing leads to another, right? Craig recognized that the mindset work that I was doing with clients was incredibly powerful. He sent me a couple of his, top clients who needed some help. We got some great results. And then it kind of started like this whole, like, okay, like Gav's the personal development and mindset guy. He's the guy that if you're having trouble with your mindset and something's not working the way it should be, we're going to send him over to you or send you over to Gav and he's going to adjust your mindset. And it's worked really, really well. Like
Awesome.
Working within the system has worked really, really well. But it was kind of this whole, like, just kind of following the breadcrumbs and taking the next indicated step got me here.
Right. Is there a common theme that you see with some of these, again, high top performer? I'm sure are they athletes that you're getting? Are they business owners? Like who are
they're business. Yeah. So it's business owners.
It's business owners.
Like business owners with, multi-7-figure businesses that, I thought that I would be laughed off the Zoom call, with some of the stuff that I'm saying to them, but they're picking it up. And so a couple of the things that I've noticed, number one, the people who are most successful are incredibly hard on themselves. Now, this serves them in many ways, right? It's really good for them, pushes them hard, but then it stops serving them. And that's where I come in, right? Like them just beating themselves up mentally doesn't work forever, right? It works for a short period. It's a good spark to the fire, but doesn't keep the fire going. And if it does, it's exhausting, right? It's really tiring. So
it is a lot of that because of traumas from childhood. Do you dig that deep, or
sometimes.
Yeah, okay, but they're just really hard on themselves.
Yeah, so sometimes we dig that deep. I think more so than like childhood trauma. Like we'll get into that if we need to, but more so it's funny you shared it earlier that, and I'll pull that back. It's like unmet needs. Like they're trying to fill a hole with more money, more hard work, right? Like there's something there that they are not getting. And so we just like kind of peel back the layers of the onion, like, hey, what's really going on here? What's the thing that you're really trying to get, and it's, fulfillment and things like that they need. And it's like, oh, well, we can get that in other ways where you're not beating the crap out of yourself mentally every day. And then it's also just like, they've always like success has come to a lot of high performers. Like for me, example, like as an athlete, sometimes you just got to grab it by the neck and pull it along. Like that's just what, and we're all told that, right? Like work harder, you've got to work harder, you've got to push harder, right? So they feel like I'm not working hard enough, I'm not doing enough. When in reality, they're probably doing like too much and they're just beating themselves up so much. Right. So I think that, again, we have these patterns that work. There's a real shift that needs to happen from like, okay, I'm starting my business and I'm scrappy and I'm resourceful and I'm just doing everything and outworking everybody. And then there's this like switch that needs to happen. And I see a lot of people there where it's like mid six figures, you're starting to build a team. You need to let go of some control and allow other people to take the lead. And in that, you're going to allow your business to grow more because you're the bottleneck in the business now. Right. And it's a shift in mindset of like, I don't need to do everything and I need to let go of control of things.
That's, I think, the hardest thing. I mean, you know what? Gee, maybe I should get some coaching from you right now, because it is a hard thing to let go. I recently brought on a couple new agents, and I'm teaching them. They're going out and they're doing some listing appointments, and one of them did one, and they're like, "Okay, Gary, can you come again?" I'm like, "No, you go do it now. You already saw it. Go sell yourself. Let them believe in you. Let them see what you're capable of. Because if I go again, then they're going to need me there. Like, no, we want Gary." And I think but that's so hard to let go. It's easy to say, but it's not easy to do.
Especially if they don't sell.
Yeah. Or if they fail.
Yeah.
And now
if they also make a mistake.
Right.
Yeah.
And then now that leader now, and I guess, there's a question here, is that now they're like, I knew it. I need to go and do it again. Or exactly. I need to take them out because nobody can do it as good as Gary or Gavin or whoever the leader is.
Totally. And that's another thing that I see in a lot of high performers is black and white thinking. And what I mean by that is they, just the example you just shared, right? They think there's only two options. They go or I go, right? They do the listing appointment or I do the listing appointment. And if they fail, the only option is for me to go back in. That's what happened.
Right.
But they don't take that extra second to go, what are the other things that could solve this problem that don't involve me going? Well, I could give this person extra training based on that mistake that they made, because it was probably a very simple mistake that they made. I could lean into training them better. Like, okay, talk to me about what happened. Take me through it. Let's do more role plays. Let's have, I will go along with you on the first appointment again. And, we'll provide support, and, I'll provide you with videos, and I'll provide you with other training. And notice how that doesn't involve Gary having to go.
Right.
Right. But a lot of times it's like snap decision. Okay, that was the mistake. Well, no, that wasn't the problem. The problem was that they weren't set up for success. Right. Well, and if you take responsibility for it, I've literally watched Craig. Like, Craig is an incredible salesperson. He doesn't take sales calls. I have watched him with our salespeople. That he would have closed the call, but he sits there and he watches the call. He reviews it, and then he says, okay, here's what you could have done. So He trains them. He helps train them up. And could he have way more money if he did it himself? Probably, but he'd have no life. He wouldn't spend time with his wife, wouldn't spend time with his kids. And that's a trade-off he's willing to make.
And that's a good point as well, too, is making sure that you have the systems and the processes in place. So I should have probably followed with that, too, because I do have systems and processes. And I do get coaching. But a 100%.
Lot of people don't.
Yes. Right.
A lot of people don't, and they go, well, it's a bad agent. I got to fire them, or I got to go back in. And it's like, and a lot of these are also just patterns of control. Right. Yeah. And so what you've learned, and what I think we can help teach people, is like, no, like, you got to put the system in place. Like, this is that whole radical, if you take radical responsibility for this, then it's your responsibility to give that person the best chance to succeed.
Right, for sure. And I think that's also a hard part as well, too, is just taking responsibility, right? As opposed to, even as a leader, is also then shifting blame on that person.
Right.
Now, you were talking about, I just want to kind of shift back a little bit in regards to the coaching that you're doing and that balance. What do you mean when you say balance? Is it that they're missing the personal life? Is it that they don't have the vacations or spending time with the family? Is that typically what you see the big issue is, where they're missing that, and they think that more money will add to it?
100%. Yeah. So a lot of the people, right, this is what they know, right? And this is what they're good at, which is like doing the thing, crushing it, right? I think they let other parts of their life go. And it's this really interesting paradox, right? So they say that they're doing the business to serve the family, yet the business is taking them away from the family,
right,
that they're trying to serve. Right. And so I think the balance is, a lot of times, we speak about high performers. Oh, what do they have in common? One other thing is, like, I have to often put the reins on them, because I have to say, look, like, this is a very powerful question. Is this a trade-off you're willing to make? Right. So if you want to make the next million, is that going to mean you might lose your family? And Gary, I'm sure you've seen it. I've watched people lose their family because they couldn't put the phone down, because they couldn't stop trying to build the business.
Yeah.
And that sucks when you see that, because it breaks you. Right. So
how do you get them out of that? That's got to be difficult.
Yeah. The way, and this is a Craig Ballantyneism: values and vision drive every decision.
I like that.
What are your values and what is your vision? When we get the North Star, okay, I like to look at the way that I look at vision is I like to look at like 5 to 20 years in the future. So for me, actually, it's less than that. For me, it's my 40th birthday, which is 4 years away.
Yeah.
And then I like to look at, like, when I'm looking back on my life, like a moment when I'm looking back on, probably at grandkids or whatever, right? If we can get clear on what the vision is there and what's important to you then in those moments, that provides a really an anchoring North Star that you can go, okay, every goal, like, so now when I set my yearly goal for 2024, let's say, I can anchor it in that North Star. And then when I set my Q1 goal, my 90-day goal, I can anchor it in that North Star of the year and the longer term, right? So then everything's kind of like bumping down. And then the decisions that I make day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, can be in alignment with those things. And what we find is oftentimes people will have the values and vision, but their decisions are not aligned with that. And that right there is a lack of integrity. You're not being who you say you are. Hey, I'm a family man, except you're spending 80 hours a week at the office. What are you talking about? You're not a family man. Your decisions are saying that you're a work man. You're an office man, right? So what we'll often do is I will bring it back, because a lot of times, and this was one of the issues that I had, you've probably fallen prey to this as well. A lot of times there isn't really even a clear vision. It's just, I want to succeed.
Yeah.
And success in our minds as high performers is more. Well, more, the goalposts are always moving, man, because there's no end to more. Right. So I'll say to them, like, okay, like, you want to make more money. Hey, I'm all for, get your bag, man. Like, make your money, go for it. But like, why? Like, what is that money going to serve? And so a lot of times when we get clarity on that, it's like, oh, well, like, I want to buy a home, or, I want to be able to put money away for my kids, for my kids' future. Okay. That's so much more powerful than just more money, because if we're not careful, we're just going to get into an ego contest of, who's got the biggest boat, right?
Yeah.
Because, and that takes us down a very dark road. But like, when you get really clear on what you want and why you want it, these are some basic principles of like the work that I do in terms of mindset, and like what you think about is what you see and what you bring into the world. Is when you get clear on what you want and why, then the universe, or whatever you believe in, I don't want to get too spiritual, whatever you believe in will conspire to help you.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Well, I figured you did. I just want to make sure the listeners.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what though, because it is a difficult thing, I think, to believe that but it is. I'd almost go as far as saying that it is a law, like the law of attraction. It is a law. It's just, but that law requires belief.
Yeah.
Right?
it require, and this is, the basis for all of the work that I do is that you have to have this faith that what you cannot see is working in your favor.
Yes. Well, look right behind you.
Well, there you
Believe.
go.
There it is, right there, right?
Ted Lasso said it best when he said believe. And I think that's the thing, right? Belief, faith, trust. Anybody who is religious will say, I have a strong faith in God. Well, what does the word faith mean? If we remove God from it, if we remove any religious connotation, it means believing in something you can't yet see.
Right.
And in my experience, I'm sure we all heard this, is I'll believe it when I see it, right? My parents always said that. I'll believe it when I see it. That's actually totally wrong. It's I'll see it once I believe it.
Right.
That is faith. I believe it even if it's completely delusional and I have no reason to believe in it. If I can believe in it and I can take actions as if that is already done, I'll see it.
Yeah. And I mean, look, if you listen to any of the top, mindset coaches, mentor, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Jim Rohn, I can go on that. They all have the same common belief and the deliveries are different, but the message is typically the same. It's just the words are different, but it still gets to the end result of belief in yourself.
Yeah, and that's what it is, because honestly, that's the most important piece. And I say to a lot of people, like, don't let a lack of self-belief be the thing that stops you.
Right.
Like there's so many things that can stop you from succeeding.
Yeah.
Don't let it be just a lack of belief, because when you learn some of these skills of like how to shift your subconscious brain, you realize that you can just make a decision to change the way you think. And then all it takes is looking for evidence, right? Most people who don't believe in themselves are looking for evidence to back that up. It's the way that our brain works. The reticular activating system looks for evidence that our beliefs that we have are true. So if we believe we're not good enough or we don't believe in ourselves, our brain's going to look for that evidence.
Yeah.
Right. But if we can shift that and say, you know what, I'm going to choose to believe in myself today, you're going to start seeing evidence that you can believe in yourself. You're going to start seeing positive things happen. And that's when that starts building, that's when we really start cooking with gas.
Do you ever slip though? Do you ever fall?
Dude, I slip like every day.
Okay. I just want to know if it was just me.
No. Okay. This is a constant battle, and like imposter syndrome is very real. And the beliefs that we grew up with, I had a great friend of mine say once, these beliefs, right? Like we'll work on our beliefs. I'll be like, okay, I think I've got that belief under control. And then she said it shows up as a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? It's like, it'll show up in like a disguise and you'll be like, there's that belief again that I'm not good enough or whatever. It shows up all the time. And I think that it's not a matter of trying to like beat it and beat the system. It's a matter of learning to play the game. Right. And recognize that this is going to be a constant thing. And if we can look at it as a game that we're playing, and we can realize that this can be fun. It doesn't have to be, super difficult or anything like that. It's not easy, but it can be fun. And if we look at it as a game, then it becomes a lot easier to deal with it for the rest of our lives, because we all will. It's never going to go away.
That's a good point. So look at it as a game. I've heard somebody else recently say that as well too. Is this a game? Is that what it is? The game of life? And
I feel it is.
Yeah.
And I feel there's this great saying, you're playing the game and you're the referee and you're the person who makes the rules. So you can change the rules whenever you want. And the best part, the rules don't matter. It's all made up anyway, because we're all going to die, and who gives a shit? Like, really, at the end of the day, Alex Hormozy says it really well. He has this belief, right? Like, because, a lot of us say, well, I want to leave a legacy and I want to, leave money for my family. And that's great. That's fine. But he said, really, when, we're all playing poker at the table in Vegas,
Yeah.
right? And we get chips and we accumulate chips, which is money and legacy and all this stuff. When we die, we're just pushing it back into the middle of the table anyway.
Right.
So, like, why do we put all this on such a pedestal? You can't, my dad said it really well. There's no pockets in coffins. You can't take it with you when you go. So this game we're playing, let's just like treat it as a game, have a little fun with it, and realize that all this stuff is made up.
You know what? That reminds me of this great quote. I need to say this while we're having this conversation. Because when I was working at TD, one of the shift managers actually had this quote at the bottom of his signature line. Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, "Wow, what a ride." That quote completely changed my life. But not at the beginning, but when I actually started to believe in it.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, that's how I should be playing this game. Like, not being scared of making mistakes. It's okay to fall down and get some bruises and scratches, but like, don't nicely put myself into the coffin. Like, just like, holy shit, this shit was wild as hell.
Yeah. What a ride, man. Because really, I mean, you look back on your life now. I mean, what I remember is like the cool, crazy shit, like the wild ride. I don't remember the times that I like, what was it that someone like that you play it safe? They say like, I can't remember the quote, but it's like, you won't, that's what it is. You'll never regret the things that you did. You'll regret the things you didn't do.
Right.
Like when you said, no, I'm not going to go sing karaoke. Right. Even if it's terrible, you'll still remember it and it's fun. Right.
Right. Yeah. Because those are some of the best stories that you have of like the mistakes that you made or the embarrassing moments in life. Those are the ones that stand out, and you can tell stories about at the campfire or wherever you're telling those stories. Right.
Yeah. And that's how we as humans also, like, you talk about legacy. Since cave people, legacy has been shared through story.
Yeah.
So like, create some good stories to share, make sure you got good stories, because otherwise you're not going to leave much in terms of lessons. You may leave money, but you're not going to leave those lessons for the people, whether it's your kids or whether it's just people in the next generation. They learn through your stories and your experiences, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say, people that make a lot of mistakes should always do seminars, so we can just sit there and just take notes, right?
Exactly.
and I'll say that too sometimes when I'm doing like a presentation, and that was always kind of difficult for me in the beginning as well too. But I always say that the only difference is I've just made more mistakes than you in this particular thing that you're trying to learn about. That's all. I'm not better than you. I just made more mistakes in this particular area, and I can tell you the mistakes to avoid.
Yeah, I've done a couple of presentations for people recently on reframing failure, and that's what I talk about a lot, because mistakes, we can switch out the word mistake for failure, right? A lot of us, we're so busy when we make a mistake or when we fail, we're so busy judging ourselves and being angry that we didn't get the thing we wanted, that we forget that in that mistake, in that failure, is a nugget of feedback, a great nugget of feedback that can help us grow. And like you said, experience is actually just like more mistakes stacked on top of one another, and more failures and more lessons stacked on top of one another. That's all experience is. You've done it before and probably screwed it up. Then other than the person who hasn't done it before, hasn't made the mistakes, hasn't experienced.
Yeah.
Right. So reframing failure, reframing mistakes to, this is a great way to learn a lesson, is an excellent, again, we're so hard on ourselves. We're like, I screwed up, I blew it. Yes. And there's a great lesson in there. So stop judging yourself and get curious and ask for the lesson.
Yeah, because those mistakes, those problems are gifts. And then those gifts then give you new tools that you put in your tool belt that will then allow you to open the next gift or problem,
Yeah.
however you want to frame it. Because if you don't go through it, you'll just keep getting the same problem. And so you've got to learn that lesson. And, it reminds me, like, even when I was like 16, 17, I remember like praying to God, like, God, if you get me out of this, I swear I'm going to go to church for the rest of my life. And you look back at that, and that wasn't even that big of an issue. But at the time, it was.
And like God or whatever higher power you believe in was just sitting there laughing at you like, you jackass, because I'm the same. It's like, if you help me pass this exam, I will forever be in here. It's like, this is like nothing. It doesn't even matter,
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. Let's switch gears a little bit. We touched on this before we started, and there's a lot going on in the world right now. How do you protect your mind with you go on your phone, social media? I don't think as humans we're equipped to see like the wars that are happening right now when dead babies show up on your phone and bombs being like it's too much with COVID, like just everything over the last, we'll call it 3 years.
Yeah.
How do you manage all that data and information that's coming in? It seems like it's just so much.
Yeah, like actually what you said is so true, that our brains are not built to receive and have to sift through all of this information. Straight up, it's too much. I've actually had like a big realization of that recently, that some of my patterns with social media are not serving me, and I'm being used by Instagram. I'm not using Instagram. But with all these challenging things going on, I think one of the things that I think of as you say that is, I made a post a couple of weeks ago about your diet. And, we're all very careful. Health conscious people are very careful about what we put into our body in terms of food and drink, but we don't think about the audio and video and that diet. Yeah. What are we taking in as inputs? And it was a time during COVID where it just became too much for me to constantly be looking at what's the newest restrictions and all this stuff, that I just stopped. Yeah. So for me, I actually actively don't read, watch, or listen to any news at all. First of all, because it's all become opinion anyway. Like, it's not even fact. Like I don't know what is fact and what is opinion. And that's also a really interesting concept, is like, unless I'm in the thing, I don't know the facts, because it's all going to be muddled. Right. So like, I don't actually know what's going on in Gaza or Israel. So everything that I'm hearing is hearsay. Yeah. Right.
It's so true.
So I've stopped with that, because honestly, like, a lot of people will say, yeah, but you got to know what's going on in the world. Yeah. But I still know what's going on in the world. I have in-laws and parents who watch the news, right? My wife will sometimes tell me like, hey, did you hear about this thing? Or someone told me about this thing, right? Like, I still have a pulse on what's going on, but like, I don't think it serves me to spend my time and my energy reading and listening and watching those things. Like, it's not helpful for me. I can't provide any value to the world when I'm doing that. And in fact, it often hurts my mental state. So then I can't serve, right? I can't help people. So that's one thing to consider, is like, what are you taking in? Like, what are you taking in? And can you shift that? Like, do you need to continue taking in the same stuff? And like, curating your social media feed, like I've heavily curated that so that I'm not receiving things that don't make me feel good, right? Like all the things that for the most part that I've curated inspire me and excite me and teach me things. Yeah. That being said, I think we've lost the ability, and I'm speaking to myself right now, Gary. So, I'm coaching myself. We've lost the ability to have white space and to just be bored, right? It's always has to be input, 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 input. Oh, I'm going for a walk. I'll toss a podcast on. Oh, I'm
Right.
in the middle of my workout. I'll check a couple emails, right? We've lost the ability to just be. And this is actually what our brains need to let information settle and to like actually make sense of all the inputs.
Yeah.
Right. So you have all these inputs coming at you all day, right? This conversation, social media, news, emails, texts, all this stuff. And if we don't give ourselves space, that's never going to settle. So we're never going to actually form opinions and get ideas and be creative from this information. We're just going to continue taking in information.
Yeah.
So those are the two key things that I have learned that as I said, I'm still working on, but like curating what is coming into your eyeballs and ear holes. And then also just like starting to recognize, can I take more space? Right.
Yeah.
Can I just take more space to just like go for a walk in nature without earbuds on and just literally, it's a wild concept. Just go for a walk.
Yeah.
Period.
You know what? That's some really, really good advice. It really is. There's a couple of things there that I want to kind of dissect a little bit. So there's one thing, like, especially when it comes to social media, I learned this one from Jim Rohn. It was post and ghost.
Yeah.
Post and ghost.
Really
And
good.
I was like, I love that one. I'm like, yeah, like why? All of a sudden, it becomes this weird automatic thing that I no longer know that I'm even doing it. I'm just scrolling and I'm like, what am I doing? And I do have this alert that comes on Instagram like, hey, you've been on here for an hour. What? Right. It's like 10 a.m. What the hell have I what am I doing?
And I mean, you're not the only one, right? And then we go as a society, I have no time.
You're right.
Dude, you had an hour to scroll Instagram.
Yeah. It's wild. It's wild.
Right. And I mean, hey, look, like the people at Instagram, like, kudos to you guys. You're doing your job because we're all addicted. So you've done something right. Yeah. Right. But now it's like, okay, can we put blocks in place to make it, like you said, post and ghost, right? Can we make it easier to do that than to scroll, right? I've even recently, I put the Opal app on my phone. It's like $100 for the year. Yeah. And from 6 to 8 a.m., which is my like prime time for like getting stuff done, Opal app's on. I cannot access Instagram.
That's good.
And then actually from 7:30 p.m. on is the same thing. So essentially from 7:30 to p.m. to 8 a.m., I cannot access my apps, like my social media apps, because 7:30 p.m. is like, that's family time. I want to spend time with my wife. I want to be present with her, or whatever I'm doing. I want to be more present in it. And I could probably actually bump that earlier. And then the morning is when I get the most stuff done. And I still find myself, I'll reach for the phone, I'll click Instagram and it'll be like, this is blocked. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's blocked. I can't do it.
What's that app called?
It's called Opal app, OPAL. $100 for the year. And you set the parameters on when you can't access certain things, and you can choose any apps, anything, any websites, anything like that, certain times. You can also turn on like work sessions if you want. I just have those preset for me every day.
Yeah. You know what? So Todd, can you please put that URL in the show notes? I think it's a good one. I haven't done that, but you know what? I do like that. And I also like the white space as well too. You know, something I picked up about a year and a half ago. I tried the 75 hard challenge, failed miserably. However, I did start yoga, and I've been doing that now for over a year. And that's my little space that I have in the morning from 7 to 8, where the only thing I can think of is how am I going to bend my leg around my ears to that's all I can think of you know, but it allows me freedom to not think of anything else except the positions that I'm trying to hold. And I think everybody needs to do that at least an hour out of their day, or a few times, I think, out of the week. I think that's so important. And I'm glad that you brought that up, right? Like just to do something and not have all this information coming into your head.
Yeah. And I think there's actually something that you said there, being not good at something. It gives you this extra value of I have to be so focused on it that I can't focus on anything else. Right. Yeah. I actually get that with with like DIY jobs. Like, I never grew up, very handy. My dad didn't really do any like those things around the house. He did little things, but so when I'm like learning how to build something or learning something, like I get really focused on that, and it allows me to just have that space to just, and I'll often, I won't have any music or anything, and I'll be doing this like little job, and like epiphanies just start popping in, right? Oh, there's that thing that I've, been thinking about for weeks, right?
Yeah.
Or just even having like just conversations, kind of like I call them like campfire conversations, right? Where there's no real, no real direction, but like things start to pop loose, right? When you can do that, when you can just, like you said, with yoga, just kind of like give yourself the space to focus on something different.
Right. What would you say is maybe some of the best advice that you've received that you can share? Like something that's like, man, this really changed it for me. This is when I got it.
Yeah. I'm still working on this. And I can't tell you what exactly, like, I don't know exactly what was said. But it's like the idea that, so it came from the business coach who had the most effect on me. His name's Xander Fryer. He's the first one who talked to me about mindset and the importance of mindset. And I fought it for a long time. Basically what he said was like, if you want to have results that aren't normal, you're going to have to act abnormally. Like you're going to have people say you're not a normal guy. It's just the way it works, right? So like, I never forget this. Like when I first met him, this is when this guy built a 7-figure business in 18 months. And I first met him in the first 3 months of that. And I actually had to sleep on his couch. So I got this like extra insight, just one night, hotel messed up, whatever. Went into his house. He had a book that he had actually took the cover off, and he made his own cover of like his book title. And what's funny is I have the book, the actual book, because he wrote the book, right? So he had that in his room, and I'm like, this is weird. And then like I slept on his couch, and like, I woke up the next morning, it's like whatever, 7:00, and he's sitting in the corner meditating. And I'm just like, what the hell are you doing, man? And he's like, oh, I'm meditating. And like, I've already done like 20 minutes of work, and I'm heading to the gym right away. And I'm just like, whoa, like I'm not even close. Like this is, and the thing is like, I was being a normal dude. We had been out to dinner the night before, had a beer before bed, didn't set the alarm, just kind of got up whenever. And he was like, no, like it's a work day. Like you gotta, my morning is my key time. And so I'm not going to change that. And it's like, you've got to be viewed as abnormal to get abnormal results.
Right. And I guess there's a certain level of discipline, even when you may not want to do it, you just continue to do it.
Yeah. It's because it's just the thing you do.
Right. Yeah. And then it ends up becoming your habit. It ends up.
That's exactly it. Right. Like for him getting up at 5 a.m., meditating, doing some work, and then going to the gym it just became the thing that he did.
Right.
I'm sure there was a time where he had to battle to like, do the thing, but like by that point, it was just, that's what I do.
Yeah. Listen, I battle yoga all the time. I get up, I'm like, I don't need to do this.
Yeah. I
need to do this. It's a battle all the time, and as soon as I walk up, I see my instructor, I'm like, oh, this was so hard to do this, but let's do it. Let's go. I'm ready to rock.
Yeah. Yeah. They in the fitness world, they say, the hardest rep is getting up off the couch.
That is.
Yeah. To go to the gym. Because once you're there, you feel good. Once you finish, you feel great. It's the first thing. Right. And so to anybody who wants to make a change, and who, who is like, I want the abnormal results, what's one thing? Like, it doesn't need to be everything right now. What's one thing you can do to put yourself in a better position to succeed? And then, having the accountability to your instructor, as you do, Gary, how can you make sure that happens? Who can you be accountable to make sure that happens?
Yeah. For sure.
you know?
Yeah. It's you know, I remember listening to this one guy and he was talking about, you know, working out, and he goes, just do micro workouts. And they're like, well, what do you
Yeah.
mean micro workouts? Just go down on the ground and do one push up and then stop. Who does one push up? Nobody's going to do one push up, because once you're down there, you do that one push up. You're like, all right, well, I'm already down here. I might as well do 10. And
Yeah.
that's really how you start, right? To kind of start shift that mindset.
Yeah. That reminds me of Tim Ferriss interviewed like this famous monk.
Mhm.
And he said, what's the best meditation? Like, what's the best way to meditate? And he thought he was going to say some wild thing. And the monk said, one mindful breath, right? Same as the one push up. Just do the simplest thing you possibly can that like you'd be stupid to not be able to do. And then that's going to spark more, right? That's going to spark more. And then it will just become who you are, right? You are now, I hate to say it, you're a yogi. It's just who you are now.
You're
You
right.
do yoga.
Yeah.
Right? So
Listen, man, we're getting kind of close to the end here, but yeah, a couple more questions I want to ask, and we'll wrap it up. What's the worst and best days that's happened to you?
well, worst day for me was actually, it's always funny this way. It turned out to be the best thing for me was I was dating my now wife, she was my girlfriend, and she went and worked in Australia for 3 months. And I was traveling to go see her after she finished her work. And I landed in Australia, you know, like 14-hour flight. And, you know, within a couple hours, she told me, like, I don't know what the future holds. Like, I don't know if I'm going to come back. I don't know what I'm going to do. And like, I don't know if we're going to be together. And like, it was just a punch in the gut for me. Totally felt blindsided. And like, in hindsight, like, I should have seen this coming, you know, but that's the first time that I took responsibility. And I was like, okay, there's something here that needs to change in me. And when I started making those changes, she also luckily wanted to make changes as well. And, you know, it was one of those things we feel we both like work on each other or work on ourselves together. Right. But at the time, it was just horrible. It's like, I flew all this way and now you told me that we're breaking up. Like, what? You know? And the best day for me, like for sure, you know, this is probably a standard stock answer, but I'll tell you why, was my wedding day. And the reason why is we curated. So we actually got, I like to say, kind of lucky with COVID, because we had the exact wedding we wanted, which was 40 some people, closest, nearest and dearest. There was so much love. And it was like this perfectly curated day with all the people that we wanted to have there. And, you know, there were people that, you know, still 3 years on that still don't really like that we made those decisions. Right. People are going to misunderstand you, or not like you. We're very happy. It was the best decision we ever made. And it's a day, you know, again, no one can take it away from us. We'll always have that.
Awesome. Listen, thanks for sharing that. You know, work on ourselves together. That's such a powerful line. It really is, because I remember there was a time in my relationship with my wife where I started blaming her for not making me happy. And then I realized, hold on, I got to make myself happy. And then as I make myself happy, then she would see that I was happy, and she'd kind of start working on herself as well too. And that was such an important time, I think, in our lives, because we almost kind of went our own separate ways there. You know,
I think every good marriage has that moment, at least one of those.
Yeah.
Right. Or even just forget about marriage. Every good, you know, relationship has the moment where you both could have gone either way. Like, it literally could have gone either way. It was touch and go, and you both decided to stay, because it's a decision that both of you make to stay. Right.
Yeah.
And then the changes that need to be made are made, and we carry on.
Yeah. And it made each of us a better people to ourselves.
Exactly.
And to ourselves and for each other.
And for each other.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Gavin, listen, this was a fun podcast. I really enjoyed it. I really did. It was, you know, kind of just unscripted. We just had a great conversation. I think people will enjoy it. And thanks for sharing your insights and your journey and just being open. I think that's what
Yeah.
people want, especially in today's world. It's just honesty, and knowing that you're still trying to figure this out as well too, as I am as well, right? I don't have this thing perfected yet, but I'm having fun along the journey, and there's always something new that I pick up in a podcast. I'm like, man, that's good. I like that one.
That's right. And that's what this is about. This is like great conversations where we just hit record, right?
Yeah.
Those are the best podcasts. And I agree. It was tons of fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. So if people want to learn more about you and what you're doing, how can they do that?
So check me out on Instagram at Gavin McHale 1. But I also want to offer the listeners, I've recorded it's like 9.5 minutes on YouTube. So I'll give you the link.
Yep.
It's a daily money mindset visualization, and it just really shifts from scarcity to abundance. And you don't have to be like kumbaya, eyes closed, anything like that. You can do it while you're walking, while you're driving. You don't have to close your eyes. It's just a visualization. And people have had incredible results from listening to it and just like shifting into abundance. So I'll encourage people to check that out on YouTube as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Gavin. Yeah. So let's make sure you flip that over to me, and I'll make sure it's in the show notes below. And again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. Take care, brother. Bye.